Right, so yesterday we saw the press conference for the rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury. And to say it was a far cry from the original presser for the first fight would be a massive understatement. Because I remember that first presser having a really dark undertone to it, and it really felt as if Tyson was trying to implement mind games on the Ukrainian champion and to get under his skin. But this time around, the press conference had a completely different feel to it. Now that can be somewhat expected due to the fact that these two have now shared a 12-round classic with each other, but nevertheless, I was actually more interested by the way that this press conference unfolded, and especially by the psychology of this press conference. So many interesting things were said. In my opinion, so many revealing things were given away, and there were so many subtle takeaways from this one. So in today's video, I want to have a little watch back through it, I want to dissect it, and ultimately, I want to know your guys' thoughts on yesterday's press conference. But before we get into all that, people, welcome back to the Joey Knight Boxing channel. If you are not already, please do me a massive favour, hit the subscribe button, smash a like on the video right now, let's get into it. But before we do, I want to speak about something a lot more serious, and I want to speak about the fact that Tyson Fury yesterday revealed that his wife Paris Fury suffered a miscarriage the day before his fight with Oleksandr Usyk. And I can't even begin to imagine what a heartbreaking and traumatic situation this must have been for Paris, for Tyson, for the Fury family as a whole. And I won't read out the quote in full, but Tyson said that his wife Paris was actually 6 months into the pregnancy when she miscarried, and therefore that isn't like losing a baby very early on in the sort of opening stages of a pregnancy, which I'm sure is absolutely devastating nevertheless. But to lose a baby at 6 months obviously carries a lot more implications than it would be at losing it at a much earlier stage, because that stage of a pregnancy means that a birth is still actually necessary. And I just honestly can't get my head around how hard that must have been, and I can't express how sorry I am for anyone who has to go through a situation like that. And the thing is, this isn't even the first time that Tyson Fury and his family have had to go through a traumatic situation in the build-up to one of his fights. Listen, you lot know I'm a massive Tyson Fury fan, and I'm a proud one at that. And I remember reading in one of his books that in the build-up for the Wilder trilogy fight, he had some serious complications with the birth of one of his daughters who was born prematurely, and for quite a while, at least a month or so after the premature birth, it was actually really touch and go there. And during that time, Tyson was quoted as saying that he stayed by Paris's side at all times at the hospital. He missed training. He even slept at night on the hospital floor until about a month before his fight with Deontay Wilder, when his baby daughter's condition sort of medically progressed and she was allowed to return home with the Fury family. And look, there's a lot of Tyson Fury haters out there, especially at the moment, and I'm not preaching. If you don't like Tyson Fury, then that's up to you, but from a human aspect, I just don't see how you cannot feel for a family that have had to go through multiple hardships and had to endure such horrible and traumatic experiences like that, especially in the build-up to some of the biggest fights and most important nights of your life. And I'm not making excuses, by the way. I'm not saying it affected his performance, much like Tyson Fury also said that he isn't saying it affected his performance and that he isn't making excuses. But you can't help but feel that going through that sort of hardship would somewhat hinder your preparation. But at the same time as that, I'm sure Oleksandr Usyk has been through multiple traumatic experiences in the build-up to his fights. In fact, of course he has. The man's country has been at war during a large part of his career, and maybe there are situations that Oleksandr Usyk has been through that we just aren't aware of. So I suppose I'm just trying to say that these sort of situations do play a factor in any walk of life, not just boxing, in any job and any walk of life. And I know that a few of you guys have commented in disapproval before at the fact that I sometimes compare my own experience in boxing to that of the fighters that I'm covering, because the fact that I've boxed nowhere near the level of the guys that I'm speaking about in my videos. But that doesn't mean that I don't bleed the same blood. That doesn't mean that I don't feel the same fear, and that doesn't mean that I don't put the same sort of pressure on myself to win that these guys do. And that's why this news actually really hit hard for me, because it's something I can relate to. I've actually been in a situation where I lost not just a family member, but the person I loved most in the world on the day of one of my fights. And I remember it really did affect my performance that night. I tried to block it out, and in the heat of the battle I did. I came through and I actually won the fight comfortably, but I still spent the day in tears, which, as someone who doesn't often shed a tear, I can tell you is pretty exhausting, man. So although the high likelihood is that Tyson Fury and his family aren't sitting here watching my videos, I really do want to express my condolences and obviously give credit where it's due for being able to persevere through that situation and still put on a great performance on the night, which I feel that Tyson Fury did, albeit in defeat. Because just to cap this off, you know when you're in the changing room, right, and you're being gloved up and the runners come in and they tell you 2 minutes till ring walk and whatnot, and you've done your warm up and you know that you're about to go out there and fight. I think a lot of people would think that you're sat there and you're thinking about knocking your opponent out and you're thinking about going to war and getting your hand raised, and maybe some of you are, but personally, my main thing I'm thinking is, please just get me home safe to my family. And that's why hearing about situations like this do always bring out a little bit of emotion in me, if I'm honest. But anyway, now we've covered that, let's speak about the press conference itself. And let's start off by speaking about the champion, Oleksandr Usyk, who showed up as the Hitman's Agent 47, which I personally found hilarious. See, this just goes to show you with Usyk, doesn't it, that not only is he a genius inside the boxing ring, he's a genius outside of it too. Usyk knows that he's not a trash talker, and he knows that having a back and forth confrontation in a press conference isn't really his ideal sell when it comes to promoting a fight. But he also understands that there's a reason why fighters like Inoue and Beterbiev may be absolute pound for pound phenomenal boxers, but don't garner the same sort of attention as a Ryan Garcia, for example, a Chris Eubank Jr., guys who are a million miles less skilled than themselves. And that is because people want entertainment outside of the ring, and that is why Oleksandr Usyk is a genius when it comes to this. When you see the clips of him dancing in the gym, shouting Derek in the build-up to his fight against Chisora, telling people how he is very Phil, and now showing up as Agent 47, Oleksandr Usyk does things in his own quirky but unique way, and I love it.
What me motivation? I don't have motivation. Only my regime, only my concentration. This is my motivation.
Now, if we read between the lines here, you could perceive what Usyk is saying is that, unlike Tyson Fury and other heavyweights, he really doesn't need to go to the well and find motivation, because his career has been forged around discipline, commitment, and that is why at the age of 37, he's still looking as good as ever. Different fighters use emotions in different ways, and I truly believe that Oleksandr Usyk is a man that withdraws the emotion from his preparation and from his fights, because he understands that that is what works for him. But it also doesn't mean that that's the way that every single fighter should approach things. I believe that motivation and emotion played a huge factor in Tyson Fury rising off of the canvas in that 12th round against Deontay Wilder. But as for Oleksandr Usyk, I just always believe that his mental state is in great shape at all times.
The manager of Oleksandr Usyk, Aegis, tell us why you feel your man's going to repeat the job on December 21st.
Sometimes you can win, but nowadays the judges just see us different than we see a fight. But hopefully the judges is going to be very fair for the fight.
Now this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because you don't just start speaking about unfair judging without being prompted to do so unless you feel like there has been some unfair judging. I mean, look, just a week or two ago I was lucky enough to be out in Saudi Arabia in attendance for Bivol against Beterbiev, and that was very much a fight that split the boxing fans' opinions. Some people thought Bivol won, some people thought Beterbiev won, and many people thought that the judge judging was bad and there was a robbery on the night. So perhaps that might still just be fresh in the mind of the boxing public. But you know full well that Kilmus is referring to the first fight here, and especially the scorecards of that first fight. I personally felt at the end of that fight that Usyk had won by 2 or 3 points. However, the judges have scored it closer, with 2 judges scoring it to Usyk by a couple of points and 1 judge even scoring it to Tyson Fury by a single point. So my feeling is that Kilmus is trying to lay his cards on the table early here and grow attention and scrutiny around the performance of the judges. You could also read into it and theorise that this shows that at least Usyk's manager believes that this is another fight that's going to go the distance.
I have to be a little bit more focused and a little bit more smart to get the victory. As it would seem, my rematch with people is always ends up one way. I always end up knocking them out in the rematch. Whoever I've faced more than once has been knocked out in the rematch. So I'm envisaging something similar in the second fight with Usyk.
See, I definitely feel like there's weight to what Tyson Fury's saying here, because that right hook left hand combination that did the damage initially in round 9 was a combination that Usyk had both been throwing and landing previously. So being a bit more smart and being a bit more focused would probably help you identify that that combination or the sequence in question could be one that could be detrimental. And by being more smart and focused than you were on the night, then maybe you would be able to identify it and navigate your way around that situation. However, some would argue that Fury getting hit with that shot was more a case of fatigue rather than a case of focus or concentration, because it came off the back of rounds and rounds of Oleksandr Usyk forcing Tyson Fury to fight at a pace that he wasn't comfortable with. Consistent pressure, and that slowed the body of Tyson Fury down. And believe you me, when the body slows down, the mind definitely slows down. So I do believe that Fury's right. He does need to be more clever. He does need to be more zoned in. But I believe that improved levels of cardio and stamina are the things that will allow him to be those things. And therefore that definitely needs to be something that he needs to prioritize in this upcoming camp. And as for him always doing better in rematches against his opponents, you can't really argue it, can you? Tyson Fury has always put in a way better performance when he's faced a man for the second time than he did in the original fight. And if you're Tyson Fury, you're going to take a huge amount of confidence from that fact. But I also know what you lot are thinking, and that is that Usyk is not Deontay Wilder, Usyk is not Derek Chisora, and Usyk definitely ain't John McDermott. So let's just see how this one plays out on the night.
I believe it'd be my time this time, and I believe that all things that happen, negative or positive, are lessons. We must learn from the things that we go through in our lives, and we can only do the best we can do as human beings and as boxers and as fathers and as husbands and everything else. We can only do the best we can do as men. And that what we know how to do best is go in there and knock the fuck out of each other in a fight.
See, I like what I'm hearing from Tyson Fury here, because I know you could probably pull up contradicting statements, but to me this now sounds like he's coming to terms, or has come to terms, with the fact that the fight didn't go his way. And when he speaks about learning, that really is key for me, because Tyson Fury does need to learn from that first fight, as does Oleksandr Usyk, by the way. I truly believe that both men need to be better in the rematch, and I believe that both men will be better in the rematch. But as for Tyson Fury saying that all he can do is do his best, I think that that's something he is saying that somewhat takes the pressure off of himself. And do you know what? Even in losing that first fight, I believe that that may well have taken a lot of pressure off of himself. Think about this, right? What are Tyson Fury's 2 greatest ever nights? I would say Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder won. And maybe not so much because of the performances there, but because of the fact that he was an underdog there. And very rarely, if ever, has he then been an underdog going in to one of his fights since then. So I actually think that, call me delusional, but the fact that Tyson Fury is now going into this one as an underdog will be something that helps bring the best out of Tyson Fury. And I'm not saying that that best will be definitely good enough to win, but I definitely know that being the underdog will help Tyson Fury put in a better performance this time than he did last time.
Oleksandr, tell me this. Do you need to do anything differently than what you did in the first fight or was it all just okay?
No.
Now, Oleksandr Usyk is a man of honour and integrity, so I, for one, am never going to doubt Oleksandr Usyk's honesty, and he's never really given us a reason to do so. So, to an extent, no, I don't feel like he feels he'll need to do anything different. But I'm talking wholesale changes. Oleksandr Usyk will definitely need to tweak things in this fight. Look at the right uppercut that Tyson Fury landed on him that had him in trouble, and that was a repeatable process. That was a shot that Tyson Fury had been consistently throwing, and maybe not with the same amount of power, but landing throughout the fight. It wasn't a punch from the gods, was it? It was a punch that Tyson Fury was not only landing in that fight, but has landed and had great success with throughout his career. So you could say that Oleksandr Usyk may well need to take that into consideration in his preparation for this upcoming fight. That being said, this also shows why Oleksandr Usyk is so good, because after that shot landed and had Oleksandr Usyk in trouble, I don't really remember Tyson Fury having much success with that same shot again after that, which shows that Usyk made the adjustments in the fight after being able to establish that that was an area of concern. But other than that small change, I think Usyk's right. I don't think Usyk does need to change all that much. I think that what he needs to do is to come in and box in a similar way. Pressure Tyson Fury, drain him, try and zap his energy, and then he will have faith that at some point, that same moment that came for him in round number 9 will probably come for him again. However, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to probably upset a lot of you here and say that if it hadn't have been for that 10-8 round in round 9, you may well have ended up seeing a draw on the judges' scorecards. In fact, if you look at the judges' scorecards, you probably would have ended up seeing a draw or even possibly a Tyson Fury win, whether or not you believe that that would have been the correct decision and outcome. Had Tyson Fury not been fighting wounded off the back of that traumatic round 9, you could have seen him have a more competitive round 10 and round 11 that followed. And once again, this is all hypothetical, but what I'm saying is there were swing rounds in that fight, and the narrative that Oleksandr Usyk just went in there and gave Tyson Fury a boxing lesson is not one that I subscribe to. I saw clear rounds for Usyk, I saw clear rounds for Fury, and I also saw a few swing rounds. And I'm not saying that the 10-8 round won Oleksandr Usyk the fight, but what I am saying is that is what for me made the fight a clear win for Oleksandr Usyk. And by my own scorecards, by the way, had that have just been a 10-9 round in Oleksandr Usyk's favour, or even a drawn round, then I would have still probably had Oleksandr Usyk winning the fight by a round. So this isn't me saying that Oleksandr Usyk only won the fight because of the 9th round, but what I'm saying is it would be well served for Oleksandr Usyk to be able to replicate a moment like that in this fight if he's to win it. Now I'm going to finish off this video by playing a clip from an interview with one of my favourite boxers of all time in Andy Lee and Tyson Fury's brother, Big Shane Fury.
One of the big things people are talking about was the corner work and what was going on there. What, as you guys look back on it, what do you kind of see from it, and how do you guys, I'll ask Andy first because you was in the corner.
A lot of excitement in the corner. And he was doing so well, and then he got hurt. We had to try and pull him out of it and get him back to himself, and he got back to himself. I thought all the corner work was very good, actually. I thought Sugar was telling him what to do. John, his dad, was telling him what to do. All good advice.
Right, now let me make something clear here. Andy Lee probably forgets more about boxing in the time that it takes him to go for a shit than I even know about boxing. Not only that, Andy Lee was a phenomenal fighter who not only pulled off some great wins, but some huge upsets and unbelievable comebacks in some of his fights. And since retiring, he has now forged himself a really successful career, guiding what has been a phenomenal period of time for Joseph Parker. But I do have to disagree with him here, because I actually don't feel like the corner work was great on the night. And actually, when we think about it, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh by saying on the night, because the more negative moments are always the moments that stick in our head. We don't really hear anyone talking about what was said in the corner in rounds 1, 2 and 3. What we always hear of what was said in the corner was after round 9 and round 11 going into the 12th. And obviously in that moment, there were a lot of conflicting voices and just too many voices, in my opinion. So being that Andy Lee was one of the voices in that corner, I don't doubt his honesty when he speaks about good advice being given in that corner. And for me, that good advice was coming from Tyson Fury's trainer, Sugar Hill. And the reason it was good advice was because it was instructions. Motivation's good. It will help you push on, persevere, inspire you. But technical instructions are the difference between you winning and losing fights. And the tactical advice that Sugar Hill was giving Tyson Fury in the corner was something that I actually rated. But you could say that Andy Lee has somewhat danced around the question here, because I feel like what the interviewer really was asking Andy Lee was what he thought of the fact that we heard John Fury giving conflicting advice to that of the advice of Tyson Fury's trainer Sugar Hill. But luckily for the interviewer, Big Shane was present, and you're about to see why I rate Big Shane Fury as one of the realest men in boxing.
Can I just
I said he had to win the last
Listen,
two rounds.
the thing is, my dad's advice comes from a dad who loves his son, who would absolutely die for it. Sometimes that's not the advice you need. Sometimes...
No, but he was saying the right thing. Stay side arm, double jab, and throw the right hand to the chest.
Yeah,
It wasn't wrong. What was he
but
saying?
you might not... It might not have been the advice he needed to win the fight. Now, when you've got professional people, not like anyone knows anymore than my dad about the boxing, but when it's not close to you, you can then give someone the advice what they need to win that fight. But you going out to do it is on your own back. This is the advice you need to go and win this fight. But doing this, you might get tipped upside down. Okay, so my dad's advice: get on your bike. And basically, he wasn't worried about no decisions. Just get my son out there. Brain damage he's going to get in a minute. But to win the fight and to be a paid hand, being a professional, giving that advice, that was the wrong advice to get. Does that make sense?
I thought he was saying the right things.
Listen, it is what it is.
I thought he was saying,
But,
throw
what?
the double jab, throw the right hand to the chest, let your hands go open.
Listen,
it was what it was.
What I'm saying is,
I know what you mean, though. Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course, man.
Like-
Let's imagine watching your child in there.
exactly. Fuck the boxing match and the cup. He's thinking, let's get home and forget about it. We've done what we've done, and that's it, isn't it?
You know how I said I'm a massive fan of Tyson Fury? I think I'm an even bigger fan of Shane Fury, you know, because in a day and age when people are very, very scared to speak their mind and they're scared of the consequences that their words may have, they really don't make them like Shane Fury anymore, do they? Because what Shane Fury said there was completely bang on. And I know that Andy Lee pushed back on it to an extent and said, no, John Fury was giving good advice. He was telling him to stay side on and to throw that right hand to the chest. And I'm sure that John Fury was saying that at points during the fight. But me and you both know the interviewer was really questioning the advice and the words in the corner that were going on after round 11. Because John Fury in that moment was giving conflicting advice to Sugar Hill. And that was what blew up and gathered much attention online. You got Sugar Hill telling Tyson Fury to plant his feet and throw his hips into that right hand left hook combo, and literally seconds later you got John Fury telling Tyson Fury to move his feet and to not take any risks. So I'm not here to sit and tell you what is right and what is wrong, but what I can definitively tell you is those two pieces of advice are hugely conflicting. But being the realist he is, Shane Fury summed it up perfectly and explained that John Fury's advice was coming from a father and was coming from a place of emotion and a place of love for his son, whereas the advice from Sugar Hill was more tactical and instructive, and that was coming from a place of wanting his fighter to win the fight. And by the way, that's not me saying that John Fury didn't want Tyson to win the fight, but what I'm saying is Sugar Hill was giving less emotional advice and he was taking that element out of the advice that he was giving. And that for me is why father and son relationships in boxing can be so complex, especially when it comes to having that father in the corner for your fights. Either way, all I know is that the press conference and the media interviews surrounding yesterday's events have definitely whetted my appetite for this absolute classic of a rematch on December the 21st in Saudi Arabia. Listen, I honestly believe that we're going to see a spectacle here, and I think that we'll see a better version of both Tyson Fury and a better version of Oleksandr Usyk. And if you had to ask me right now, I truly do believe that this is going to be a 50-50 fight, and I also know for a fact that a lot of you guys in the comments are going to disagree with me, and you know what? That is absolutely fine. I don't take it personal at all when any comments come in that disagree with anything I say in any of my videos, because I love the little community that we're forging here and that we're building here, and life would be boring if everyone just agreed with each other, wouldn't it? But I can honestly say that I'm so grateful for your lot's comments. I read all of them, and I'm really intrigued to know your thoughts on this one. But I'll obviously be covering this fight in tons more detail as it approaches, but I want to finish this one off by just thanking Turkey Al Sheikh, because Riyadh season is the best thing to happen to boxing in my lifetime. It has completely saved the sport from going in the wrong direction, and now we're just being spoiled, aren't we? Because we weren't getting these sort of fights, and we definitely weren't getting them as consistently and as regularly as we now are. So as I say, we're just spoiled, man. So big up His Excellency and the guys at Riyadh season. Big up you guys for watching the video and all the positive feedback I'm having on the channel recently. If you're not already, please subscribe. I looked at the analytics and so many of you aren't. It helps me massively if you're able to, and if you like the content, by subscribing and by liking the video, it allows me to be in a position where I can pump more of it out for you lot. I will see you all in the next one.